All right, let's dive in. Today we're going deep into the world of real estate, celebrity real estate specifically. We're talking Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Our listeners have sent in some really interesting articles and video reports about their properties. Should be pretty fun to take a look.
Yeah, definitely. It's always fascinating to see how people, especially artists like Drake and Kendrick, express themselves through their homes. You know, they both have such distinct public images, and it'll be interesting to see how those translate into their choices as homeowners.
Exactly. And to get started, let's talk money for a second. We got to have some context, right? So Drake's estimated net worth is about $250 million, while Kendrick Lamar's is sitting at around $75 million. Safe to say they both have some room to play around with when it comes to real estate.
I mean, with a net worth like Drake's, you can really go all out. But it'll be interesting to see if Kendrick's choices are a bit more, curated.
Right. Okay. Let's jump right into it. Let's start with Drake's place in Toronto. This thing is nicknamed the Embassy. Did you know that?
I did hear that.
It's a 50,000 square foot mansion. It cost him $100 million. He even called it his legacy. So you know he's serious about this place.
Wow.
But what I find interesting is it's not just a big empty mansion. It's full of stuff that's like really tailored to Drake's interests.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, he's a huge basketball fan, so of course there's an NBA regulation-sized basketball court. And for his music, a whole professional recording studio right there in the house.
I mean, that makes sense. He's got to have a place to work on his music. But it also kind of shows how he wants everything he needs right there, And not just those things, but the best versions of them.
Yeah, for sure. And the details in this place are insane. There's a 4,000-pound black marble bathtub that was carved from a single block of marble. And get this, a chandelier with 20,000 hand-cut Swarovski crystals. It was originally meant for the Metropolitan Opera House.
Oh, wow.
It's like he's building a palace fit for a king.
Right. Makes you wonder what he's trying to say with all that. Is it celebrating success, showing off his wealth, or maybe even creating a work of art in itself?
Now, let's talk about Kendrick Lamar. His style's totally different, much more low-key. In 2023, he bought a house in Bel Air for $16 million. But here's the thing, we hardly know anything about it. There aren't many pictures, and details are super scarce.
That's interesting. It's a pretty big contrast to Drake, right? It seems like Kendrick might prefer privacy, keeping his personal life separate from his public persona.
Yeah. It's almost like he's purposely going against the flashy stuff we usually see from celebrities, especially in hip-hop.
Right. It really makes you think, is this about his values? Is he saying true success doesn't need to be shown off to everyone?
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to Drake for a minute. We got to talk about his YOLO estate in Hidden Hills, California. He started putting this compound together back in 2012. Started with a $7.7 million main house. This place is massive, like 12,500 square feet, and basically a resort. The pool has a grotto, a waterfall, and even an 80-foot slide.
Wow, 80 feet. That's a serious slide.
But he didn't stop there. He kept buying up properties nearby.
Really? What else did he get?
He bought a ranch-style house next door for $3 million, and then a mini Ponderosa for $4.5 million. It seems like he really wanted privacy and control over the whole area.
Yeah, it's not just about the main house. It's about having that buffer, that space around you.
Exactly. Now let's hop over to the East Coast. Kendrick Lamar's got an $8.6 million penthouse in Brooklyn. Drake actually mentioned this in one of his diss tracks, but let's just stick to the real estate here.
Okay, go.
So what's interesting is that this is probably just a second home for Kendrick. He mostly lives in L.A.,
Yeah, makes sense. So what's it like?
Well, it's got 18-foot ceilings, reclaimed pine floors, and almost 2,000 square feet of outdoor space. And it's got amazing views of Lower Manhattan and the Brooklyn Bridge.
Sounds pretty nice.
Oh, and other celebrities live there too, like Matt Damon and Ed Sheeran.
Huh. So maybe he likes that kind of environment when he's in New York. It's different from Drake's isolated estates.
Could be. Okay, now let's swing back to the West Coast and talk about this Tuscan-style estate Drake's got in Beverly Hills. He bought it for $75 million, but get this, just a year later he listed it for $88 million. This place is huge. 25,000 square feet, 10 bedrooms, 22 bathrooms, and sits on nearly 20 acres of land. It's got views of the canyon, city, and ocean, plus a mosaic-tiled pool and an 11-car garage. But the question is, why is he selling?
Yeah, it's kind of strange, right? You'd think he'd want to hold on to a place like that. Maybe he wants a change, or maybe he's looking to invest in something even bigger.
It does seem sudden, especially for such an amazing property. Maybe we'll find out more as we keep digging.
I'm ready for it. It's kind of cool how both Drake and Kendrick are approaching real estate with this long-term vision. Like, it's not just about having a nice place to live, but building a portfolio that, goes up in value and adds to their overall financial legacy.
Yeah, they're treating real estate like another way to express themselves creatively and be smart with their money. And speaking of smart investments, Kendrick Lamar's got this $9.7 million mansion in Manhattan Beach, California, and a really chill beach community in South Bay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It was never actually listed publicly, so there's hardly any info or photos out there.
Classic Kendrick, keeping things low-key and focusing on the value of the property, not the hype. So different from Drake's style, right? Always going to be big and flashy.
Totally. Makes you wonder if Kendrick sees real estate as a more stable and discreet investment compared to the music industry, which can be pretty unpredictable.
Yeah, that's a good point. And snagging an off-market property like that shows he knows what he's doing. You can often avoid bidding wars and get a better price that way.
Okay, I got to bring this up because it's pretty wild. Remember Drake's YOLO estate?
Yeah.
The one with that crazy pool and grotto?
Oh, yeah. What about it?
He sold it in 2022 for $12 million.
No way. Did he make a good profit?
Yeah, about $4 million. But it's not a huge return considering he owned it for like 10 years. Plus, he probably spent a ton on maintenance and upgrades.
True. Especially with all the crazy features it had, like a 25-seat movie theater and a mechanical bull, even an equestrian ring. Sounds like the buyer got a pretty sweet deal.
I know, right? It shows how unpredictable the luxury real estate market can be. It's not always about getting the absolute highest price. Location, timing, and market sentiment all play a role.
Definitely. It's all about finding the right buyer at the right time, someone who sees the value in a unique property.
Let's go back to Canada for a sec. Drake's Embassy in Toronto, remember?
Oh, yeah, that place is insane.
So we talked about the basketball court and recording studio, but get this. His recording studio has a Rolls-Royce ceiling.
What? A Rolls-Royce ceiling? What does that even mean?
It's designed to look like the starry night sky you see when you're inside a Rolls-Royce. Imagine recording music under that.
That's pretty wild, but it's so Drake, right? He's all about that over-the-top luxury. His home is like an extension of his brand.
Yeah, it's like he's created his own world where everything is super luxurious and personalized. But it's cool that he's still connected to his roots, That mansion isn't just a fancy house, it's a tribute to Toronto.
Right, there's that sense of grounding amidst all the extravagance.
It makes you think about why they make these choices, right?
Yeah.
Is it just about status, or is there something more emotional going on?
It's probably a mix of things. Showing off success, wanting security and control, but also maybe wanting to establish roots and create a space that reflects their values.
It's fascinating to see how Drake and Kendrick do that in such different ways.
Absolutely. Speaking of contrasts, let's talk about Drake's $75 million Beverly Hills estate, the one he bought in 2022 and then listed for $88 million just a year later. Some people thought he was just trying to flip it for a quick profit, but it's still on the market.
It was a risky move, especially with the market cooling down. Maybe he overestimated the value or just wants to wait for the right buyer.
It's a gamble, but Drake's never been afraid to take risks. And let's be real, that estate is incredible. 10 bedrooms, 22 bathrooms, 20 acres of land, and those views.
It's definitely a trophy property, but it also shows that even for someone like Drake, real estate can be unpredictable.
And it raises the question, are these investments just for fun, or is there a business strategy behind them? Are they thinking like real estate moguls,
Yeah.
Seeing these properties as part of their financial portfolio?
That's a great question. I mean, they clearly love real estate, but they're also super successful business people.
Right. It's probably a combination of both. They get to enjoy these amazing homes while also making smart investments.
So we've seen the extravagant side of Drake, but he's got some more low-key properties too.
Yeah.
He owns a $2.8 million condo in Yorkville, which is like the fancy part of Toronto.
Huh. That's interesting. Much smaller and more low-key than his embassy. Maybe he just likes having options.
And he's also got a ranch in Texas where he escapes from the city life.
Oh, I love that. It shows he needs that balance, a place to relax and connect with nature.
And it shows he values privacy, even though he enjoys being in the spotlight.
For sure. It all comes back to how these choices reflect their personalities and what they find important.
Yeah, it's been really cool to explore those differences and see how their real estate decisions match their music and their public images.
I agree. And as we move into the last part of our deep dive, I'm curious to see if we can find any deeper connections between their real estate and their art.
This whole real estate thing, it's really taken us beyond just the houses themselves. We're seeing into the minds of Drake and Kendrick Lamar, how their art and their personal lives are all mixed together.
Yeah, their homes are like an extension of their creativity. Each property tells a story about them, you know?
Speaking of stories, let's talk about how their music ties into their real estate choices. It's like their properties become characters in their songs. Remember that Kendrick Lamar diss track, Not Like Us?
Oh, yeah.
The cover art showed Drake's Toronto mansion covered in red markers, like those warning signs you see online about, certain people.
Yeah. That was a bold move for sure. Definitely added fuel to the fire, made people wonder what was really going on.
And Drake called out Kendrick's Brooklyn penthouse in his track. Family matters, right? He implied that Kendrick was living this bachelor life even though he was engaged.
Wow.
It's like they're using their music to comment on each other's lifestyles. And real estate becomes this symbol of their differences.
It adds a whole other level to their lyrics. It's like we're getting a glimpse into their world, their personal spaces, their drama.
Totally. It's like a backstage pass to their lives.
Makes you think about the psychology behind it all, you know? Is it just about status? Or is there a deeper need driving these choices?
For Drake, it seems like security and control are really important. Remember how he bought up all those properties around his YOLO estate?
Oh yeah, like he was building his own little kingdom.
Exactly. It's like he needed to create this fortress to shut out the world.
It makes sense wanting that privacy and order when you're surrounded by so much chaos.
And then there's Kendrick, who's much more low-key. His properties are nice, but not super flashy. It's like he's saying, I'm successful, but I don't need to rub it in everyone's face.
Yeah, it's subtle but powerful, like he's focusing on what really matters, not just appearances.
It's amazing how different they are, but both are so intentional with their choices.
Right. They're using their homes to express who they are.
And it makes you wonder, does the environment they create affect their music? Maybe Drake's big fancy spaces fuel his bold personality in music, while Kendrick's more private places lead to the kind of introspective music he makes.
That's a really cool idea. It shows how much our personal spaces can influence our creativity.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. We started comparing square footage, and now we're talking about symbolism and the psychology of it all.
I know, it's been a wild ride.
It all comes back to this.
Yeah.
Real estate isn't just about the buildings themselves. It's about the people, their lives, and their stories. So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about. If you could design your dream home, what would it be like? Would you go for Drake's grand style or Kendrick's more understated approach?
There's no right answer. It's all about finding what feels right for you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration.